Jeff Major from Skyline Adjusters. I'm going to address a short video on base flood elevation, BFE, firm flood insurance rate map, and lowest elevated floor above the base flood elevation. So if you're every post firm, which is after they did the flood maps, every post firm NFIP insured property has a base flood elevation that has been established. On its elevation certificate, it's also going to establish the lowest elevated floor above the base flood elevation. So if your BFE, base flood elevation, is here, let's say 5 feet, and the lowest elevated floor above 5 feet is the first elevated floor, which happens to be the case on this property. The NFIP RC BAP policy has restrictions, or most post-firm properties, general properties, have restrictions for items below the lowest elevated floor above the base flood elevation. It's a little confusing. Just imagine, here's your base flood elevation, go to the next floor up. Everything below that actually has restrictions. The restrictions are, I'll read them real quick. Central air conditioners, cisterns, water in them, drywall for walls and ceilings in the basement, and the cost to install it, not to tape it, not to finish it, anything else like that. Electrical junction and circuit breaker boxes, electrical outlets and switches, elevators, dumbwaiters, and related equipment, except for related equipment installed below the BFE after September 30th, 1987. Fuel tanks in them, furnaces, hot water heaters, heat pumps, non-flammable insulation in the basement, pumps and tanks used in solar energy systems, stairways, staircases attached to the building, sump pumps, water softeners, chemicals in them, water well tanks, required utility connections for any item in this list, and footings, foundation, post pilings, piers, or other foundation walls and anchorage systems required to support a building. That's the 17 items under A. B is cleanup. So in this property, they had walls here, they had storefronts, they had a little office and center. None of that's covered under the lowest elevated floor above the base flood elevation. All the electric service, there's 42 electric services coming in here, the fire pump system, all the main electric is covered. It's important to understand that the nuance of number 17 under A, footings, foundations, post pilings, piers, or other foundation walls and anchorage systems required to support a building. So if you have a poured concrete pier, that's something that's covered. It's required to support the building. If you have an infill block wall that is not load bearing and not required to support the building, it's not covered. So when you're estimating, or you're insured who has a post-firm elevated building, and you define your base flood elevation, go to the next floor above. In this case, the waves created flood damage, water damage from flood on the floor above us. All that's covered without restrictions, without the 17s. But everything below that, if it turns out on this property that the base flood elevation is an inch higher than the first floor above, then it goes to the floor above that, and everything below that is restricted. So it's important to understand your base flood elevation and your restricted items below that. Thank you.